My wife accused me of cheating, and her family physically attacked me and ruined my whole life. After the truth comes out, she wants reconciliation, but her face turned pale when I never saw it coming. One moment, I was sitting at the dining table, scrolling through my phone after a long day at work, enjoying the background noise of my kids laughing in the living room. The next, Olivia, my wife of 12 years, stormed into the room with her phone clutched in her trembling hand, her face contorted with fury. "Who the hell is she?" she demanded, her voice shaking. I blinked at her, my brain scrambling to make sense of what was happening. "Who?" I asked, genuinely confused. "Don't play dumb with me, Adam," she shouted, shoving her phone in my face. I flinched back slightly before taking a closer look at the screen. My stomach dropped. There, in clear black and white text, was a message from an unknown Facebook account. The sender claimed to be a concerned woman who had come across my Tinder profile, complete with my name, my photos, and an entire history of messages exchanged with multiple women. Explicit messages. I let out a small laugh, more from disbelief than amusement. "This is ridiculous," I scoffed, shaking my head. "Olivia, you know I don't have Tinder." But she wasn't laughing. Instead, she turned on her heel, grabbed her own phone, and within seconds, I saw her typing furiously. My heart pounded as I watched her download the Tinder app right in front of me. "Go ahead and explain this," she spat, holding her screen up for me to see. There it was, an active Tinder profile under my name, complete with my photos, my details, and a last active status that read online less than a kilometer away. My stomach twisted. "What the?" My voice trailed off as I snatched her phone and scrolled through the profile. My pictures, my name, my general location. But it wasn't me. I had never created a Tinder account in my life. "Olivia, listen to me," I said, looking up at her. "I swear to you, I don't know who made this. Someone must be using my pictures." She let out a sharp, bitter laugh. "Really? Someone just conveniently decided to catfish women using your face? Do you think I'm stupid, Adam?" I ran a hand through my hair, feeling the weight of frustration pressing down on my chest. "No, of course not. But you have to believe me, Olivia. This isn't my account. I have no reason to be on Tinder. I love you. I love our family. Why would I risk all of that for something this stupid?" But she wasn't listening. Her face was set in stone, her eyes brimming with betrayal and something else, disgust. "I don't know, Adam. Why don't you tell me?" she snapped, turning the phone back toward herself. "Because according to this, you've been very busy." She scrolled through messages I had never sent. Messages filled with flirtation, crude jokes, and worst of all, pictures. Pictures of me. It felt like my world was tilting off its axis. "Olivia, this isn't me," I repeated, my voice thick with desperation. "Someone is pretending to be me. This is a setup. Please, you have to believe me." She exhaled sharply, shaking her head. "I want to believe you, Adam. But tell me, how did these pictures end up on this account? Pictures I took of you on our anniversary? The same ones you have saved on your laptop?" My breath caught in my throat. My laptop. The realization hit me like a freight train, knocking the air from my lungs. The only time I ever uploaded personal pictures to any device was through my old laptop, the one that had been sitting in our house for months before I got a new one. The one I had loaned to our neighbor, Rick, when he told me his had crashed and he needed something for work. Rick. My mouth went dry. But before I could say a word, Olivia let out a bitter, hollow laugh. "You're silent now. Nothing to say," she said, shaking her head. "I gave you a chance to tell me the truth, Adam. I wanted to hear you say it. But now I see I was just wasting my time." My pulse roared in my ears as I watched her expression darken. She didn't believe me. After everything we had been through, after years of love, after 3 kids, and a home we built together, she thought I was cheating on her. "Olivia, please," I whispered, stepping toward her. But she recoiled like I was a stranger. "Don't," she hissed, her eyes wet with unshed tears. "I don't even want to look at you right now." She turned and walked away, disappearing into the hallway, leaving me standing there in the middle of our kitchen, drowning in the crushing weight of false accusations. I felt frozen in place, my mind racing. I needed to fix this. I needed to prove to her that this wasn't me, that someone else was responsible for this. But how? How do you prove your innocence when all the evidence is stacked against you? I barely slept that night. Olivia locked herself in the guest room, refusing to speak to me. I sat on the couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment in my head, trying to piece together what had happened. I knew the truth, but it didn't matter, because in her eyes, I was already guilty, and that was when it hit me. The beginning of the end wasn't when she showed me the messages. It was the moment she chose to believe a stranger over me, and I didn't know if I'd ever be able to forgive her for that. I barely had time to process what had happened before Olivia made her next move. She didn't just accuse me. She made sure the entire world knew about it. I sat at the edge of the couch, my fingers clenched into fists, my head pounding. I had spent the entire night in the living room, replaying the events over and over, trying to make sense of it all. How had this happened? How had my life, my marriage, turned into this nightmare in a matter of hours? I had tried speaking to Olivia again that morning, but she ignored me. She walked past me like I didn't exist, like I was already some stranger who had wronged her beyond repair. She had barely looked at me when she left the house, her car pulling out of the driveway at full speed. I didn't know where she was going, but a part of me already suspected she was going to tell her family, and I was right. By evening, my phone started blowing up. First, it was a text from her sister. "I can't believe you would do this to Olivia, to your kids. You make me sick." Then came another, this time from her mother. "I don't even have the words for what you've done. I just hope it was worth it." And then, the worst one of all, her brother, Marcus. No text, no call, just an ominous notification. "I'm coming over." I barely had time to stand up before the sound of a car screeching into my driveway made my blood run cold. A door slammed shut, heavy footsteps stormed toward the front porch. I knew what was coming. The second I opened the door, I barely had time to get a word out before his fist connected with my jaw. The force sent me stumbling back, my vision flashing white for a second before the pain followed. A deep, burning ache spreading through my cheek and down my neck. "What the hell, Marcus?" I shouted, clutching my face. "You piece of shit," he spat, shoving me hard against the wall. "You think you can humiliate my sister and get away with it? You think you can sleep around and still walk into this house like nothing happened?" "I didn't cheat," I roared, shoving him back with all the force I had. "I don't know who made that Tinder account, but it wasn't me." Marcus scoffed, his fists clenching at his sides. His eyes burned with pure rage, like he had already decided that no matter what I said, I was guilty. "You expect me to believe that? After everything Olivia showed me?" He shook his head, his voice laced with disgust. "You don't deserve her. You don't deserve this family." Before I could respond, my father-in-law stepped into the house. I hadn't even realized he was outside. He walked in slowly, his face unreadable, but there was no warmth in his expression, just disappointment. "Pack your things," he said quietly. I frowned. "Excuse me, you heard me." His voice was cold, emotionless. "The kids don't need to see this. Olivia doesn't need to see this. Leave." I blinked at him, stunned. This was my home. The place I had built with Olivia, the place where we had raised our kids, shared years of memories. And yet, here I was, being kicked out like some criminal. For my own safety, I let out a bitter laugh, looking between the two men who were supposed to be my family. "This is my house. My name is on the mortgage. I have just as much right to be here as Olivia." "Not tonight, you don't," my father-in-law said, his gaze hard. "If you don't leave now, the next time you hear a knock at the door, it'll be the police." I stared at him in disbelief. "You called the police on me?" Marcus smirked. "Let's just say, if you don't walk out of here on your own, they'll make sure you do." A lump formed in my throat as I realized the full weight of what was happening. I had already lost. It didn't matter that I was innocent. It didn't matter that there was no proof, no actual evidence that I had cheated. The accusation alone was enough to destroy me. I let out a slow breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Fine. If they wanted me out, I would go. But I wasn't leaving without a fight. Without a word, I walked past them, heading upstairs to pack a small bag. As I entered the bedroom, the room Olivia and I had shared for 12 years, I felt something break inside me. How had we ended up here? Just days ago, we were laughing, making dinner together, playing with the kids. And now, she had turned against me so easily. By the time I came back downstairs, a police car was already parked outside. The officer at the door gave me a neutral glance. "Sir, we were called about a potential domestic dispute. We're just here to ensure everything stays peaceful." I clenched my jaw, gripping my duffel bag tighter. "There's no dispute," I muttered. "I'm leaving." "Smart choice," Marcus sneered. I ignored him and stepped outside. The cold air hit me like a slap in the face. The neighborhood was quiet, except for the occasional flicker of curtains from the surrounding houses. They were watching. I was being humiliated in front of my own neighbors. I walked to my car, my legs feeling like lead. As I opened the door, I took one last glance at my house. The home I had worked so hard for. The home I was now being forced out of. Olivia stood at the window. She didn't look angry anymore. She looked broken. For a second, I thought she might come outside, that she might stop me, that she might say anything to make this right, but she didn't. She just stood there, watching as I got into my car and drove away. And that was the moment I knew I wasn't just leaving my house. I was leaving my entire life behind. The hotel room was suffocating. I sat on the edge of the stiff mattress, my duffel bag lying open beside me, half packed with whatever clothes I could shove into it before I left the house. My head throbbed from the punch Marcus had thrown at me, and my jaw still ached every time I moved it. But that pain was nothing compared to what was twisting inside me. I had lost my home. I had lost my wife. And worst of all, I could feel myself losing my children. I checked my phone again. No messages. Not from Olivia. Not from my kids. It had been 3 days since I was forced out of my own house. And in those 3 days, the story had spread like wildfire. Olivia had wasted no time in making sure everyone knew what kind of monster she thought I was. At first, it started with close family, her parents, her siblings. Then, it spread to mutual friends. And then, somehow, it made its way into my workplace. That morning, when I walked into the office, the whispers followed me like a shadow. I didn't need to hear their words to know what they were saying. I heard he cheated on Olivia. She caught him on Tinder. Disgusting. Can you believe it? 12 years of marriage and he throws it all away. I sat at my desk, my hands clenched into fists as I tried to ignore the murmurs around me. But the worst came when my boss, the man I had worked under for nearly a decade, pulled me aside. "I don't know what's going on in your personal life," he said, rubbing the bridge of his nose, "but we can't have this kind of scandal affecting the company. Clients talk, Adam. Your reputation is tied to this firm, and right now, it's not looking good." I stared at him, the weight of his words pressing against my chest. "You're punishing me for something I didn't even do," I said, my voice tight. He sighed, shaking his head. "I'm not firing you, but if you can't fix this mess, you're going to lose more than just your marriage. You're going to lose your career too." That was when I realized how deep the damage went. This wasn't just about Olivia believing I had cheated. This was about the way one accusation, a false accusation, could destroy everything I had built. And the worst part? She wasn't done. That evening, when I tried calling to speak to the kids, Olivia didn't answer. I tried again, and again, and again. Finally, after what felt like the 100th attempt, she picked up. "What do you want, Adam?" she said, her voice flat. "My kids," I said, gripping the phone so tightly my fingers ached. "I want to talk to my kids." She let out a humorless laugh. "Now you care?" I closed my eyes, forcing myself to stay calm. "Olivia, don't do this. I am still their father. You know I would never do anything to hurt them." She was silent for a moment, and for the briefest second, I thought she might actually listen. But then she spoke. "You're not seeing them this weekend." My stomach dropped. "What?" "I don't think it's a good idea," she continued, her voice sharp. "I don't want them around you right now. They're confused, Adam. They don't understand why their father," she paused, her voice dripping with venom, "betrayed their mother." I sucked in a breath. "Olivia, you can't do this. Legally, you can't keep them from me." "I can't actually," she cut in. "And unless you want to drag this through the courts, I suggest you back off." The line went dead. I sat there, the dial tone ringing in my ears, my pulse hammering in my skull. She was taking my children away from me. She was taking everything. I spent the next few weeks in a haze, bouncing between work, my hotel, and desperate attempts to reach my kids. Every call was ignored, every message went unanswered. And then, just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, it did. One morning, as I was sipping on cheap coffee in the hotel lobby, my phone buzzed with a notification, a message from an old friend. I clicked on it, my stomach twisting into knots as I read the words, "Dude, have you seen Olivia's post?" My blood turned to ice. I quickly opened Facebook, scrolling until I saw it. There, plastered on her page for the entire world to see, was a long post detailing her heartbreak, her betrayal, her strength in the face of my so-called infidelity. She had written about how she had discovered my secret life, how she had been devastated for our children, how she had been left to pick up the pieces after I had thrown our marriage away. And then, the worst part, the comments. "Stay strong, Olivia. You deserve better than that pig. I always knew there was something off about him. How could he do this to you? To his own family? What a disgrace." I scrolled through them, my hands shaking. My own friends had commented, some of them offering sympathy, some of them outright condemning me. Not one person had asked for my side. Not one person had doubted her story. My breathing became shallow as the reality of it all hit me like a sledgehammer. I was being erased, not just as Olivia's husband, but as a father, as a friend, as a respected man. I wasn't just losing my marriage, I was losing everything. That night, as I lay on the stiff hotel bed, staring at the ceiling, I felt something inside me harden. I had begged Olivia to listen. I had tried to reason with her. I had spent weeks hoping that somehow, she would realize the truth, that she would see what she had done. But that hope was gone now. She had made her choice. She had buried me alive. And now, I had no choice but to leave it all behind. I picked up my phone, my fingers shaking slightly as I typed out the message to my boss. I'm resigning. I'll be leaving for Sydney by the end of the month. I was done fighting for a life that had already been ripped away from me. The only thing left to do was walk away from the wreckage. Leaving was easier than I expected. Maybe because there wasn't anything left to fight for. The day I boarded my flight to Sydney, I didn't tell anyone. No farewell messages. No goodbyes. Just me, my suitcase, and a one-way ticket out of the life that had been ripped apart. As the plane took off, I stared out at the endless sky, my mind numb, my heart hollow. I should have felt something, sadness, regret, maybe even anger, but all I felt was exhaustion. A deep, bone-crushing exhaustion that made me sink into my seat, close my eyes, and let go of the past. Or at least, I tried. The first few months in Sydney passed in a blur. I buried myself in work, throwing everything I had into my new job. The long hours kept me occupied, and when I wasn't working, I was either at the gym or lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, my thoughts drifting back to the family I had lost. Because even though I had left, they were still there. My children were still there. I tried calling. At first, it was every day. Then, every few days. Then every few weeks. Olivia never answered. Instead, she forwarded everything through lawyers, legal restrictions, scheduled visitations I couldn't make because I was on another continent, updates about the kids that felt more like business reports than messages from the mother of my children. It was like she was slowly erasing me from their lives, just like she had done before. And maybe, just maybe, she had succeeded. Because eventually, I stopped trying. Not because I didn't love them, but because I was tired. Tired of begging. Tired of hoping that Olivia would come to her senses. Tired of waking up every day to a life that felt like a punishment for a crime I never committed. So, I let the silence take over. 14 months passed without a real conversation between me and Olivia. Not one word. Until the night, everything changed. It was a cold November evening when my lawyer called. I had just gotten home from work, tossing my keys onto the counter when my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it. Another case update, another meaningless document to sign. But something about the way his name flashed on my screen made me pick up. "Hello. You're going to want to sit down for this," he said. My stomach tightened. "What is it?" There was a pause. Then, he sighed. "Olivia knows the truth." I frowned. "What truth?" "The truth about the Tinder account," he said. "She found out who really made it." For a moment, I didn't move, didn't breathe. Then, slowly, I sank into the nearest chair. "Who?" "Richard." The name punched the air from my lungs. "Richard," I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. "Your old neighbor." Apparently, Olivia's friend was at a party a few weeks ago, and she overheard Richard bragging about how he had set up fake accounts using her photos. He thought it was funny how easy it was to make someone look guilty. When Olivia confronted him, he laughed it off, said it was just a joke and that he didn't think she'd actually believe it. I clenched my jaw, my grip tightening around my phone. My entire body went rigid as the weight of those words sank in. A joke that had cost me my family, my marriage, my entire life. "She's sending you an email," my lawyer continued. "An apology. A long one. She wants to talk." I swallowed my throat dry. My mind was a storm of emotions. Rage, disbelief, exhaustion. She wanted to talk? Now that the damage was done. Now that I had spent over a year living with the weight of a crime I never committed. I closed my eyes, exhaling slowly. "What do you want me to say to her?" my lawyer asked. I opened my mouth, closed it. Then, after a long pause, I said the only thing I could. "Tell her we can talk over Christmas." That night, I lay in bed, staring at my phone screen. The email was sitting in my inbox from Olivia. Subject: "I'm sorry. I didn't open it. I wasn't sure if I even wanted to." I already knew what it would say. Regret, excuses, explanations. But none of them mattered, because an apology didn't change what she had done. It didn't change the nights I spent alone in a hotel, wondering how my life had crumbled overnight. It didn't change the fact that she had chosen to believe a stranger over me. It didn't change the fact that she had destroyed me. I put my phone down, rolling onto my back. Christmas was a month away. She wanted to talk, and for the first time in a long time, I had nothing left to say. The December air was crisp when my plane touched down in the city I once called home. It had been over a year since I had last set foot here, but it didn't feel like home anymore. The streets were the same. The buildings stood where they always had. But I felt like a stranger in my own past, walking through the ruins of a life I no longer recognized. I didn't go to our house. I didn't tell Olivia I had arrived. Instead, I checked into a hotel near the city center, unpacked the bare essentials, and sat by the window, staring out at the skyline. This wasn't a vacation. This wasn't a reunion. This was a confrontation, and I had no idea how it would end. The next morning, I arrived at my old house to pick up the kids. I expected Olivia to wait inside and let them come out on their own.